Biden will inject $14 billion. We see today that are no more rooms in hotels in Israel.
All industries. The U.S. wants the war to keep going. More than 11,000 people have already died, and the U.S. is still not calling for a ceasefire. This is making all the nations mad at the U.S., and they would also take some action. But as they get aggressive, the U.S.'s plan to expand the war becomes true. So what should the nations do to prevent this? Let's find out. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will find our videos intriguing. In this video, we will discuss why the U.S. is spreading this war. We will also talk about the long-term impact this will have. Watch the video until the end to know if the U.S. is making the worst mistake ever. Let's get started. The potential for a wider regional conflict becomes more prominent as Israel contemplates a ground invasion of Gaza. The U.S. warns against such an action, fearing it could provoke Hezbollah into launching an attack from the north. This scenario could transform the conflict into a two-front war, and the situation might escalate further if Palestinians in the West Bank join the fray against Israeli settlers and soldiers. As the ghost of a broader regional conflict looms, the Middle East's balance becomes sharper. The interconnected nature of conflicts in the region makes any localized disturbance a potential catalyst for a more extensive conflagration. The involvement of Hezbollah, armed with sophisticated weaponry and battle-hardened fighters, adds a layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. But what is Hezbollah's role? Hezbollah, a Lebanese militant group, has long been a significant player in the region with close ties to Iran. Its involvement in the Israel-Hamas conflict amplifies the risk of a broader regional war. Hezbollah's extensive military capabilities, including an arsenal of rockets and missiles, pose a substantial threat to Israel. The group's strategic calculus includes defending its allies and furthering Iran's regional interests. Lebanon's border with Israel becomes a potential flashpoint as Hezbollah launches attacks, potentially drawing the Lebanese government into the conflict. The complexities of managing a multi-front war raise concerns about the ability of regional and global powers to contain the situation. The spillover effect could impact neighboring countries, creating a domino effect of instability. In response to the escalating tensions, the United States deployed additional troops to the Middle East, positioning them strategically to signal readiness to intervene if the conflict spirals out of control. Two naval strike groups are stationed off the coasts of Israel and Iran, highlighting the U.S. commitment to maintaining stability in the region. The decision to deploy additional troops is intended to reflect that global powers must navigate in the face of regional conflicts. The U.S., with its long-standing alliance with Israel, wants to show itself as if it seeks to prevent further escalation that could have far-reaching consequences. At the same time, the presence of U.S. forces is a deterrent against any aggressive moves by Iran or its proxy groups, reinforcing the principle of maintaining stability in the region. But if the U.S. wanted to stop the war, why would it never stop Israel from starting a war on Gaza? We will discuss that later. First, let's discuss the U.S.'s plans with Iran. The U.S. says one must delve into Iran's regional ambitions to comprehend the intricate geopolitical landscape. Iran aspires to be the dominant power in the Middle East, and its rivalry with Israel, a nuclear-armed nation, adds a layer of complexity to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Iran's support for anti-Israel groups, including Hamas, serves its broader strategy of creating an axis of resistance against perceived adversaries. The conflict in the Gaza Strip is not merely a localized dispute, but a manifestation of broader regional power struggles. The U.S. said Iran's influence extends beyond direct military engagement. It leverages its network of proxy groups to exert pressure on Israel and its allies. The geopolitical chessboard sees Iran and the U.S. protecting their strategic interests, with the Israel-Hamas conflict serving as a focal point. The U.S. deploys military assets to the region as a show of strength. Diplomatic efforts also play a crucial role in managing the crisis. President Joe Biden's visit to Israel highlights the importance of diplomatic dialogue in resolving the conflict. As a key mediator, the U.S. seeks to prevent the situation from spiraling into a full-scale regional war. Diplomatic channels offer a pathway to de-escalation, with the international community urging restraint and a return to negotiations. The United Nations and other diplomatic forums become arenas for dialogue, where global powers attempt to navigate the complexities of regional geopolitics. Achieving sustainable peace requires not only a cessation of hostilities, but also addressing the root causes of the conflict and fostering conditions for lasting stability. But again, if the U.S. wants the war to end, why is it not using the two-nation approach? Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos about China's development, power, and influence on the world. Let's continue now. Amidst the geopolitical strategic calculations, the humanitarian toll of the conflict cannot be overlooked. The Gaza Strip, already grappling with economic challenges and limited resources, bears the brunt of the violence. Civilians, including women and children, find themselves caught in the crossfire, facing displacement, injuries, and loss of life. International humanitarian organizations strive to aid those affected, but the challenges are immense. Evacuation efforts are hindered by the complexities of the conflict zone, with civilians in the northern Gaza Strip facing obstacles and seeking safety. The international community's response to the humanitarian crisis is a critical component of the overall strategy to address the Israel-Hamas conflict comprehensively. The complexities of regional geopolitics, entangled with historical grievances and power struggles, emphasize the challenges of finding a lasting solution. Diplomacy, backed by a robust understanding of the intricacies of the conflict, offers a pathway to de-escalation and eventual resolution. But this is where the U.S. plays its role in expanding the conflict. The U.S. is spreading the Israel-Hamas war, but it is pretending it does not do it. The United States, as a key ally of Israel, has acted as a mediator in the region, balancing strategic interests with the imperative of regional stability. The international community faces steering the course toward peace. Now the question is why the U.S. wants to spread this war, and why is it not looking for an end? The current situation, marked by ongoing hostilities, raises questions about the U.S. stance, particularly concerning calls for a ceasefire. The complexities of the conflict are highlighted by a range of considerations, reflecting a broader geopolitical and humanitarian context. The United States' reluctance to push Israel towards accepting a ceasefire is rooted in a shared desire to confront and dismantle Hamas, a group designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. government. The U.S. supports Israel's goal of degrading or eliminating Hamas, aligning its position with President Joe Biden's expressed sentiment on the matter. The U.S. calls it a terrorist group, but they say they are fighting to get their nation back. The challenge posed by Hamas is multifaceted. While the group is said to be a significant factor in the Palestinian territories, its designation as a terrorist organization complicates the international response to the conflict. The U.S. and Israel view Hamas as a threat to regional stability and security, contributing to their joint efforts to weaken the group's influence. But to clean all of this, the U.S. has tried to regain the Muslim nation's support with its words. It says that despite aligning with Israel on targeting Hamas, the U.S. takes a distinct stance on certain aspects of the conflict. The U.S. does not support the Israeli reoccupation of the Gaza Strip after the war concludes, emphasizing a nuanced approach to the post-conflict landscape. This stance recognizes the potential challenges and complications associated with a reoccupation strategy. Furthermore, the U.S. is mediating for small amounts of food aid for Gaza while concurrently rejecting calls for a ceasefire. This seemingly paradoxical position highlights the complexity of the situation.
Innovation doesn't happen on its own. It needs leaders to drive it. The bootcamp is...
The provision of food aid highlights a humanitarian concern for the well-being of civilians in Gaza, even as the U.S. refrains from endorsing an immediate cessation of hostilities. The subtle approach aims to balance the humanitarian imperative with broader geopolitical considerations. But how difficult would it be to do a ceasefire? Why are innocent people being killed? Do you think giving them food will fix everything? The U.S. position in the Israel-Palestine conflict extends beyond the immediate military engagements. The reluctance to advocate for a ceasefire aligns with a desire to address the root causes of the conflict. Understanding that a sustainable resolution requires tackling underlying issues, the U.S. seeks a comprehensive approach beyond a temporary cessation of hostilities. Additionally, the U.S. aims to play a role in shaping post-conflict governance in Gaza. This aspect of the U.S. strategy is intended to reflect a commitment to ensuring stability and effective governance in the aftermath of the conflict. They say the focus on post-conflict arrangements speaks to a broader vision of fostering conditions that can contribute to lasting peace in the region. But why is the U.S. all of a sudden sending food to Gaza? There are also U.S. interests in that. The U.S. has been criticized for supporting Israel and not caring about human rights. So after the deaths of more than 1,100 people, the U.S. is now giving the people in Gaza food to wash in their sin. The U.S. position in the Israel-Palestine conflict is implanted in a broader geopolitical and humanitarian context. The U.S. says various factors, including the desire for stability and security for all parties involved, influence the decisions made by the U.S. government. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, with its intricate alliances and rivalries, shapes U.S. decision-making. The U.S. is saying humanitarian considerations are also paramount in the U.S. approach. Balancing the need to address the immediate humanitarian crisis, as seen in the mediation for food aid, with the long-term goal of regional stability, requires a delicate balancing act. The U.S. wanted to show that it sought to navigate a path that mitigated human suffering while addressing the root causes of the conflict. How is the U.S. spreading the war? The U.S. first stood against Iran. The United States is expressing worries about Iran's role in the Israel-Hamas conflict, fearing that the war could spread and involve a larger region. Iran has been accused of supporting Hamas, a Palestinian group committed to Israel's destruction, along with other Iran-backed allies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Houthi rebels in Yemen. The U.S. and its allies are working hard to prevent the conflict from expanding. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has issued a warning to Iran, urging them not to escalate the Israel-Hamas conflict. He emphasized the crucial role of American allies in the Middle East in preventing Iran and its proxies from widening the war. The U.S. and its allies are actively trying to prevent a broader conflict, especially amid concerns that an Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip could prompt Iran to enter the conflict. While Iran denies direct involvement in specific events related to the conflict, its support for Hamas and other Iran-backed allies in the region raises concerns about the potential for the conflict to escalate and involve a larger area. The Israel-Palestinian dispute plays a central role in Iran's regional strategy, aiming to complicate U.S. relations throughout the Arab world and undermine U.S. and Israeli ties with Iran's Arab rivals. It has made allegations against Iran, making it one of the players in the conflict. Secondly, it dragged all Middle Eastern nations in when it said it would end Gaza. It is known to all that the United States has become a central player in the Israel-Palestine conflict, taking a stand that not only impacts the immediate stakeholders, but also drags in nations across the Middle East. The catalyst for this broader involvement was the U.S. announcement that it intended to bring an end to the conflict in Gaza, a move that sent shockwaves throughout the region. The United States initiated a significant diplomatic move by announcing its intention to bring an end to the conflict in Gaza. What initially seemed like a regional issue between Israel and Hamas quickly transformed into a matter that drew in nations from the broader Middle East. The ripple effect of this declaration stretched beyond the borders of Israel and Palestine, involving neighboring nations in a conflict that